Hey YouTube! Last lesson we had made a simple pattern using just C's, and we were playing around with the cutoff and resonance, and it should sound something like this. And I hope you really did do the homework, because it's important to just get this basic understanding of taking the same note and giving it so much life just playing around with these knobs here. And this lesson, I'm going to be showing you how to get some more patterns to use inside of technoBox2, thanks to this handy website, Famous Acid Patterns. And you'll see here we've got lots of patterns. And you'll notice that they've got the 303 version and the Zoxbox, and the reason there are these differences in these patterns are down to the time codes, as well as different tunings for the different instruments. But we're not going to worry about any of that because we've got our technoBox and it makes life simple. So we're just going to focus on pattern 9 here and using the Zoxbox version. These are pretty easy to read, but I'll walk you through it anyhow. The note obviously tells you what note you're playing. The up and down are just like what we've got here on technoBox, and the accent and slide are also like what we've got on the technoBox, and I'll explain those briefly. The slide slides between notes, playing everything in between. So we've got our down C going down an octave from a middle C. So it's going down C, B, A, G, F, all the way down to the low C, and then it goes up to the second step, which is also a middle C. So we're going from a middle C to a down C to a middle C, and it's playing everything in between. If you reverse that, you're going from middle C to the down C, so you're going C, D, E, F, and the accent just makes things a little louder. And you can control that with the accent knob. Let's plug this pattern in. Let's go to an entirely new pattern and let's clear it to make sure there's nothing weird going on and make sure that we're on step 1. And now we just start loading it up based on what we're seeing here. So we see the first thing is a G, and it has a button for slide, so we hit the slide button. And the same with the second note. I'm going to start playing this for you so you can start to hear how this changes over time. Right now we've got 2 G notes with a slide and a whole lot of C's. And now we've got a G without a slide, a G without a slide. And now you'll notice on the 5th step there is no note, and that means you're supposed to turn off the gate. And you'll hear that there's now that gap there. It's not sounding when the gate is not lit. So that's how you turn off notes for a specific step. And in the next we go back to having the gate on, and we want a down G. And then another G. And once again we turn off the gate on step 8. And it's easy to keep track of where you're at using one of these grids, because you'll notice they're spaced out into groups of 4, so you'll get used to thinking about bars and measures in quarter notes and 16 notes, and this makes it really easy working here in technoBox because we know that we've got our 16 step bar in our pattern, and as you see here on the graphic, we've got 16 little steps here, so we can look at it just at a glance and say, okay, well, I know I'm trying to find the 9th step, so I just jump 2 sets of 4 here to find that I need a sharp. And once again I turn off the gate, and then I need a down slide sharp. And now just a down A sharp. And once again. And now we got our last note, the 16th note, which is a down A sharp. Now this should start to sound sort of familiar to you. This is New Order's Confusion, which was remixed by Pump Panel and made famous as the soundtrack for Willow. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. It was the title track for Blade. So now we got our basic bass line. Let's throw in some drums. Make sure that you've got the cutoff maxed and the volume maxed as well, so you're going to hear what's going on. And we'll bring in our 808 sound. We're going to use the same 4 on the floor pattern that we had in our first lesson. And if you tap it again, you get a bright lit up square there, which indicates you've got an accent on that. And we'll get more into what accents and velocity means, but for right now it just means that that is going to sound louder. So let's listen to that. You hear we've got one part that sounds really loud. That kick right there. And you usually don't want to start accenting the hell out of everything because you're going to encounter clipping, and we'll get into that much later. But as a good rule of thumb, you don't want to try to overload too many sounds at once. But in this instance, since we're not going to be doing any other drum parts, we're going to go ahead and accent all of this. So now we got a really heavy thump going on. And I'm going to shape the cutoff on this, which is just like the cutoff on the synth part, where we're reducing the frequency that it sounds at. So now we've just got the thump part of that. Let's go back here and bring our synth back in to listen to how that sounds. I don't know about you, but I'm bobbing my head right now. Now we can take this and widen the sound by using our second synth part. And to do that, we're going to copy what we've already done here by just hitting the copy button. And I'll swipe to the left twice to get to synth 2 and hit paste, and it'll ask you, do you want to overwrite the pattern that's already there? And since that's just a whole bunch of C notes, I am quite alright with that. And let's bring that in here. So now we've got 2 synths doing the same pattern, and one you might recall I've set to a square wave, and this one here is set to a saw. And you can control both of these at the same time using the performance tools. If you swipe to the right until you get to this, and you see we can now tweak all of our instruments at once. So I can crank this up, I can crank this up, You'll notice this doesn't sound exactly like the way you've heard it in the Blade soundtrack, but that uses a lot of different effects in order to pull that off. And technoBox is unfortunately limited to a set of global effects. And right now I'm not using any of them, but you set the individual parts. You say, okay, I want to use my effects on these parts. So I've set it down to synth 1 and synth 2. And hitting on gets it going. That's a bit much, so I'm going to bring that down. You get really fucking crazy with this. if you're not getting this exact sound, make sure that your BPM is set to around 120. Because if you've got it any lower, it sort of sounds like it, but it's not quite. And if you get it even lower, it's less like what we're going for here. And the same if you go too fast. It's the general idea across, but for right now, let's just go back to a 120 because that seems to sound closest to what we're expecting. And you don't have to be terribly exact right now. Don't worry about trying to fiddle with it to get to point O. So now you've got a really full pattern to play around with, and I encourage you to do that. It's important to just get into this and practice. If you've got 20 minutes, while you're waiting for dinner to cook or whatever, don't waste it playing some stupid Facebook game. Load up technoBox and start tweaking some knobs here.